And joining us now to discuss the issues of the day and some of the opinion pieces in the prominent newspapers, we have by remote David Mercer. Always great to see you, David, a Democratic strategist, and he's in D.C.
Good to be with you, Patty Ann.
And we have a former Congresswoman, Sue Kelly, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sue.
Good morning.
All right, so one of the topics of discussion is President Obama's vacation. Obviously, we all need them, and yet the criticism, of course, has come that he should be heading right back to Washington to deal with the economic crisis as the Dow is, again in a big tumble, and other issues going on as well. David, is it fair at all?
Whether it's fair or not, that's going to happen. Every president gets criticized for a vacation. I can say for taking vacation, even though it's all part of a family tradition to get away with your family and to spend that time to reflect on what you have done and what you're going to do forward, which is exactly what the White House tells us he'll be doing. I would also say that, it's one record that we're definitely not going to try to beat, which was Bush's record of 500 days on vacation. Nearly 40% of his tenure in 2 terms was on vacation. I can guarantee you that's not a record we're looking to beat.
Congresswoman Kelly, what do you think? I mean, some people say you really need to recharge in order to refocus. Your brain needs that.
Well, I would agree that he does need to take a break, but perception is reality. Mm-hmm. And the public sees, take a look at what's happening. Mm-hmm. The jobs market has gotten worse. Homes are not being purchased by anyone. The European markets are frightening Wall Street, so things are falling. The stock market's going down, and the president is taking a vacation in a $50,000 a month house. I mean, or $15,000 a week. Sorry, I think.
Right.
That is the reality he's presenting to the nation. He doesn't look serious. He's going to be, and the thing I read in the newspaper said that he wanted to spend time with his family. I didn't know Michelle and her children played golf.
Patty Ann, if I might add a little reality to that, I think if you went and polled vineyarders, especially islanders who make most of their income in the summer months and get a huge hike from presidential visits and everybody that comes there to spend money to see the president or to be around all the press and everybody that goes in, that island and Massachusetts are getting a bump, I can tell you, of income that will sustain them through the other 9 months of the year. Having been up on the vineyard, I've seen it up close and personal. So I think the people on the, wherever the presidents may go, they generate a lot of income for the jobs that are servicing that presidential visit going into the vineyard.
Oh, come on, David.
It's a big truth.
You're telling us that one island gets a jobs bump because the president is coming to spend some time? What about the rest of America? What about the people out there in Kansas? What about the people out there in Colorado? What about the people where in all
wherever the president may be, Sue? Okay, there's going to be a bump because of the volume of people that travel with him, and I can tell you firsthand, and you should try it and go up there around Labor Day and see how happy they were, both in building the confidence and getting the income from that visit.
For them. Gee, maybe he should visit Nantucket, and perhaps he should also visit Fisher's Island.
Okay.
There's lots of islands around. We're not looking at that.
He's generating more income than sitting in the White House right now.
We get the picture here. Let's move on. The GOP field, a topic that our viewers have indicated in yesterday's poll that they're very interested in hearing more about. Rick Perry, of course, jumped into the race recently, and he is the governor of Texas, which has done quite well on the employment front in the midst of nationwide unemployment rate over 9%. His state responsible for more than 35% of the new jobs created. And other people, though, now pouncing on that record, saying, we keep hearing about this, but let's really examine it. There's a downside to all of that, and there is an article in the Fort Worth Star Telegram today saying that Perry's record on jobs in Texas isn't exactly as clear-cut as it may seem. David, what about that?
I believe it isn't clear-cut. That's not to take anything away from Rick Perry, but let's put it in perspective. Even Karl Rove said it wasn't just Rick Perry that positioned Texas to where it is. It was George W. Bush, it was Ann Richards, and those that preceded him. That's out of Karl Rove's mouth. Secondly is that they are subsidized jobs. It wasn't him alone. They have the highest, they are the top recipient of DOT, or Department of Transportation funds. They also, from the military with the BRAC program, receive a whole bunch of subsidies from the federal government. And then to boot, because of the low wages, you also have Texas almost one of the leaders on recipients of food stamps, because the wages do not provide for a subsistence livelihood for a lot of those that do have jobs and that are recorded among among the employed in Texas. So it is both a public-private. Yes, he does try to incur investment and job hiring by corporations and luring them to Texas, but it's not him alone, as he would have you believe in a lot of instances. It is in conjunction with the public sector as well.
Sue Kelly, we are hearing a lot about that, these folks have jobs, but they're very low-paying jobs, statistically speaking, compared to the national average. We're also hearing that, it's because of the oil that they have all these jobs. It's not Perry's credit.
No, it's not all oil jobs. It's jobs across the state. What Texas did early on was reduce government regulation and reduce their taxes on businesses, which allowed the jobs to be created. If a business doesn't have to have, for every person out front in the business, there's 5 people in an office trying to fill out federal forms, of course they're going to make more money, and that is very attractive to anyone who's trying to run a business in the United States. So businesses have been moving there, but Rick Perry didn't create the situation totally. Rick Perry inherited, as David pointed out, Rick Perry inherited a very good situation, and he just simply amplified it and kept it going.
All right, we have a comment
did the federal
from him.
Government.
We have a comment from him speaking yesterday in New Hampshire about President Obama. Let's roll that now.
And we don't need an excuse maker in chief who assigns blame instead of taking responsibility. We don't need a government solution. We need government out of the way, because the private sector is the solution.
All right. David Mercer, a lot of people make that criticism of President Obama. He does spend a lot of time talking about how he inherited a lot of these issues and how the world situation is out of his control and that a lot of it's just not his fault. Too many excuses?
Not at all. I mean, those are facts. No president since the Great Depression has inherited what the president has, and that's not to cast blame or to throw it off on Bush, because we have to look forward and go ahead. So whatever cards you were dealt, you got to do the best you can with them. But it is a fact. Moving on from that, he is trying to deal not just with federal largesse, and to put, again in perspective, Rick Perry making it sound like the private sector all by themselves are responsible for any economic boom we may have. That's not true. Just like we have the defense industry down in Texas, contractors come from other states, it's warmer weather, and they benefit from those subsidies in the development of our defense or securing our defense. So again, I want to reiterate, it is a balance, which the president has constantly talked about, whether you're talking public and private sector or whether you're talking in balancing our books, addressing both revenue and generating revenue, as well as cutting spending to provide for the future of this country, whether you be elderly, whether you be a baby boomer coming into your elderly years, or whether you're trying to get a college education. We got to put this in balance.
All right, let's move on to another topic now. Congressman Gabrielle Giffords, of course, was shot during a horrible tragedy in Arizona, and it's not clear at this point whether or not she's planning to run for re-election. And now we have some Republicans who would potentially like to run against her, saying that the Democrats are exploiting the perception that she is running for re-election as a way to blunt attempts by the GOP to win that seat. This is something of interest to State Senator Frank Antinori of Tucson. The deadline to submit a nominating petition is May 15th, and he is interested in possibly running. What do you make of all this? We'll start with Sue this time.
Quite frankly, I think that someone should run against Gabby. She's a lovely woman, but the job of being a congressperson is really exhausting, and it requires every inch of every facility you've got to try to work at all the levels that you have to work at when you're in Congress. As I say, she's a lovely woman, but I think she herself needs to make that choice. From what I understand, she's not completely back, and she requires a certain amount of help still. And this, not that you can't do that if you're in Congress, but she's been out of Congress. She's been absent, and when you're absent, you get out of Congress and you're off the floor for about 4 or 5 months. You really have a huge job just catching up. I do think that people would do her a favor. The Democratic Party would do her a favor if they would ask her to step down and try to run someone else in that position, and let the chips fall where they may. Let a Republican challenge her. It's going to be very difficult to run against her because she's a national heroine in a way.
Right.
But someone really should do that if the people in Arizona care about the quality and depth of the representation they're going to get for that seat.
David Mercer, as Sue pointed out, she's just become a hero. Everyone on both sides of the aisle rooting for her full recovery. She was shot in the head, had a devastating brain injury. She's bounced back remarkably. It's going to maybe take a little more time for her to determine how far she's going to bounce back. Shouldn't she be entitled to take that time, wait as long as she can to figure it out?
I totally agree, and I don't know many people that take a bullet to the head and rebound as fast as she has, and I have all the faith by that demonstration and her will to live and the power of life to carry her through this and to run for re-election. Look, if somebody wants to run against her, go be my guest, but I doubt that they'll be able to overcome that kind of power that she's already exhibited, showed up on the floor for the deficit ceiling vote, and went to see her husband take off and come back from space. Look, my bet's with her, and I think most would find that among her constituency.
So isn't it a difficulty for a Republican who chooses to challenge her? You almost come out looking like a bad guy because you're picking on this woman who we all admire for her recovery, but politics are politics, and if you're a Republican and you want certain votes to go a certain way, you got to fight that fight.
Yes, you do. And if you are a Republican in looking for that seat, it's going to be very difficult to frame your race in such a way that you're not seeming to make Gabby a bad person, a bad woman, a bad representative. It's an unfortunate turn of events what happened to her, and she has come back remarkably well. But I know what the cost is. I've been there. I've been walking those halls for 12 years, and I can tell you that it's a tough, hard, physically exhausting job. Those people have a choice of besides that, the size of Gabby's district is big. You have to get around. You have to sit down and listen to people in town hall meetings. You have to be there when the Boy Scouts earn their Eagle and things like that. It's not just sitting in an office.
Right.
Physically, it's demanding.
Okay, David Mercer, Democratic strategist, joining us from D.C. I understand we're going to be losing you now. We just wanted to thank you, as always, for joining us
Pleasure
here on
being with both of you.
FoxNews.com Live. Hope to see you again soon.
Okay, have a good weekend to the two of you and the audience.